Everybody, thanks for being here. I'm called this regular meeting of the Midcoast Community Council of April 24th, 2019 to order. Will the council members please introduce themselves, starting on my left?
Dan Haggerty.
Chris Johnson.
Brian Kwan.
Claire Touton.
Dave Olson.
Barbara Mathewson.
Lisa Ketchum.
All right, and we will start with the Board of Supervisors report and other government reports. Allie, you're up.
Alrighty, good evening, Midcoast Community Council and community members. My name is Ellie Dellman. I'm here on behalf of Supervisor Don Horsley to provide a brief update for you all. We have 3 items on the list today. So the first is regarding the short-term rental ordinance that was passed, if you'll recall, for the coastal zone. It was approved by the Board of Supervisors, and at their recent board meeting this past Tuesday, they approved the permit fee for the short-term rental permits. And so the next step in the process will be for the Planning and Building Department to start reaching out to anybody who is actively listing a property within a residential coastal zone and asking them to, letting them know that the ordinance exists and that we have applications and that they have a certain time period to come in and submit their application.
How will they know who's listening?
So the county actually, I believe Planning and Building already has a contract with a company called Host Compliance, who specializes in short-term rental compliance and monitoring. And so they have I believe they have some sort of technology that has the ability to scan a large number of listing sites, Airbnb, VRBO. I think it's over 20 sites that they scan, and I think it might be on a monthly basis, or I'm not sure if it's how often it is. But so through Host Compliance, they will be assisting Planning and Building, at least in the front end, in terms of identifying who is actively listing and making sure that those that are listing are aware of the ordinance and that they are in compliance and have a permit.
So are they going to start accepting applications like right now, or is it May 1st? Or
I will follow up with them and circle back with you to let you know.
Okay,
I know they have a draft, or they have an application form, and I'm not sure if it's been posted yet, so I will check on that and get back to you at the latest your next meeting.
Thank you.
And then the second item is regarding the significant and heritage tree ordinance. I mentioned, I think in the past, that the county and Planning and Building is in the process of updating the tree ordinance for unincorporated areas within San Mateo County. And they have a large steering committee, which Lisa Ketchum is part of. So if you have any questions about the specifics, she would be a good person to talk to. But it sounds like the timeline for the updates to the tree ordinance to take effect, they're looking at fall of 2018 to bring the updated ordinance to the Board of Supervisors. Before that, I think they'll likely go before the Planning Commission and possibly have to do some sort of environmental review. They're still taking a look at what all is going to go into that, but it's moving forward, which is good. And in the past, there was a separate ordinance for significant trees and a separate ordinance for heritage trees. Depending on the diameter of the tree, it was considered significant, or if it was a larger, older tree, it was considered heritage. What's being proposed is actually kind of combining those into one single ordinance, but separating the urban tree ordinance from the rural tree ordinance. The rural tree ordinance would apply to certain zoning districts that are more rural, and I'm assuming would be slightly different, or different than what the urban ordinance will look like, which is what it will be coming before the board in the fall.
Great.
And the last thing is just a reminder of the Mental Health Awareness Month is in May, and Supervisor Horsley, in coordination with the health system and Cabrillo Unified School District and the Mental Health Services Act, they're hosting the Art and Wellness Festival on Friday, May 4th at Cunha Intermediate School, and the goal is to bridge communities to physical and mental wellness through dance performances, photo galleries, poetry slams, film screenings, wellness crafts, and more. So it should be a really fun event. And I brought one flyer and one poster. I don't know if anybody has a place in mind that they'd like to post the information, but let me know and I'd be happy to leave it with you. And that's all I have for you.
Somebody delivered the flyer to everybody at Villa Ridge.
Oh, perfect.
Maybe they think we're the perfect.
Not sure, but that's.
We have these message
glad to hear.
tubes under our mailboxes, and they were yes, we're nice.
Excellent.
Does anybody on the council have questions for Ellie on any of those?
Yes,
All
I
right.
have a question.
Go ahead.
Should I take that flyer so that they can maybe get it on the screen? Just a little bit, see if this works while I'm asking my question. Is there any kind of, on this tree ordinance, is there any kind of fast track for dying pine trees or invasive trees, unwanted trees like the eucalyptus?
Well, there's a committee meeting actually next Monday or Tuesday, and so I'll know more after that. But actually, they did send us the draft ordinance that we're going to be looking at, but I haven't finished reading it yet. They're clearly, from what I read so far, singling out the situation we have here where they're distinguishing between indigenous trees and others. And indigenous, we don't have any indigenous trees here. The cypress, pines, and ukes are not indigenous to this area. And it is acknowledged that they are invasive, so I don't think you're going to see much protection for them.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Any other
Sure.
questions?
Yeah.
Harvey, would you like to go next?
Sure. Harvey Rohrback from the Half Moon Bay City Council. A couple of updates which are relevant to Midcoasters. Tonight, the Parks and Rec Committee is meeting to finalize the Parks Master Plan and what might be relevant to Midcoast people who want to take advantage of what we would hope is going to be a new community park. So the draft master plan says that we should start planning for acquiring and funding a large, like 15-acre community park, which I'm sure will be used by more than just Half Moon Bay residents. We are going to have a retreat, that's the City Council retreat, to determine our priorities for next fiscal year. And that's going to be May 1st, 10:30 a.m. And my guess is it's going to last till 5. I don't know. It's going to be a long day. And public input is requested, and we're going to have 2 periods of time set aside for public input, one around noon and the other around 3 o'clock. So if you want to comment about the priorities of the City Council in the upcoming year, please, it's going to be at the usual place where we meet, the Ted Adcock Center. We'll have some light refreshments in case you want to hang around for that around noon. Next item that I want to update you with has to do with our Community Services Financial Assistance Grant. This is the first year that City Council has decided to help fund services for coastside organizations. Like Coastside Hope got its full funding that it requested. So that helps not only just Half Moon Bay residents directly, but many coastsiders. So we think that there are lots of worthy nonprofits, and we gave out over $130,000 first year. And if it's successful as a pilot program, we hope to give out even more in future years. Then there's another good news that we've... yeah.
What's the funding source for the grant program?
General fund. Yeah. We've authorized a funding agreement with the Bay Area Air Quality Management District to install 3 new electric vehicle charging stations in Half Moon Bay. So if you go to the Tesla website and you look, you'll see that we're listed as a charging station location. So we really want to make sure that we're on board with the EV revolution. And lastly, this is somewhat controversial, but we did pass a resolution of intention to transition to district-based elections. So we're moving forward with doing district-based elections. Be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions for anyone, Council? Yeah, Dan?
Yes, respectfully, would you like to have community members participate in the retreat that would otherwise normally have to work on a Tuesday?
That's always an issue, okay? We just scheduled 4 listening sessions where the public was welcome to come. We did not have any time limits on the discussion, and one of the sessions was completely in Spanish. Some of those were held at night, some were held on weekends, but if this retreat is going to take 7 or 8 hours, which I anticipate it will, hard to do all in the evening. So,
Can I make a request that
Sure.
a suggestion moves down the chain, that, you start a little later in the morning and then carry it into the early evening to allow people to stop by after work? And specifically to have I don't know, sometimes some way of, some kind of like a short summary of maybe the key points that were, and then so that a public comment period could be, after one would arrive after work, read the summary, and then be able to make a comment. I think it would certainly, believe it would be appreciated by the community. Not only City of Half Moon Bay, but the whole coast side.
I will pass along that to the staff to see if they are willing to start a little bit later. Yeah.
I'm sure the staff would like to have more public participation as well.
Yes, we all would. I mean, we had 4 listening sessions. The last one had 90 participants. Most of them were Latino. The whole thing was held in Spanish, so the people on the city council all had headphones. And we learned a lot about what the Latino community wanted from us. So, yeah, no, we're really into finding out about community input and not just lip service, but actually listening to what the community wants.
Thank you.
Sure.
Chris?
I know it's early in the process, Harvey, but I have a couple questions about the districting. One, who will be drawing the districts?
There are 2 mechanisms that are being discussed, okay? We've already employed a demographer who has begun to come up with some suggestions that would be consistent with fair voting. So one possibility is that we will have some public hearings, allow the public to submit their maps, and have the city council make the final approval. The other possibility that's being discussed is to have an independent commission create the maps. And nobody has actually, we haven't committed to the mechanism yet.
Okay, and this is probably a more subjective question, and feel free to
Yeah.
just walk off and not answer, but is this something that the city council felt strongly about, or were they over a barrel or looking down the barrel of a gun on this one?
I would be glad to answer that question, the latter.
Okay. Thanks, Harvey.
Sure.
Brandon?
So, more on the redistricting question. Do you, does the city council believe that some of the districts might be too small, like there might be only be a few hundred residents per district or something like that? I mean, Half Moon Bay is already a small town. Like, do you have any concerns?
Absolutely, it's a small town, and one of the requirements of the California Voting Rights Act is that the districts be substantially equal in population. So we can't make one district much larger than any of the other districts. It's not allowed to.
Thank you. Claire?
Since we're all asking you something tonight.
It's all right.
Is the city putting anything on the June ballot? Or have you made decisions on that?
As far as I know, no.
Yeah, by now you would know, so I think the answer is no. All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Steve?
Thank you, council members. Steve McGraw, General Manager of the Sanitary County Harbor District, and I'll be very brief. We did just recently have a Harbor Commission meeting, mostly administrative. We got a clean audit. We did a lot of cleanup in our 15-16 fiscal year audit, and that resulted in a 16-17 audit that, auditors never sing anybody's praises. The highest praise they can give is this is an unqualified audit, and we've got an unqualified audit. We did adopt our preliminary budget for the 18-19 fiscal year. We'll be looking at that again at the May meeting and then adopting a final budget at the June meeting. And we did receive from the consultants an update on the West Trail project, which is moving forward 100% design drawings and into permitting. As we talked about the May meeting, I know normally the third Wednesday, the board did elect to change the date for anybody who's interested in the May meeting from May 16th to May 23rd. Additionally, that meeting would normally have been held in South City. This May 23rd meeting will be held on the coast side downstairs. So for anybody who would like to attend that meeting.
We meet the same night, so we couldn't come.
Yeah. But other members of the public certainly
That's
might be
right.
interested.
And are we having that folk dancing presentation that night? So it could be a little loud down there.
Bang on the ceiling with a broomstick.
Indeed.
That's all I got. Other than that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I'll just keep asking the question I ask almost every time I see you. Any updates on the actual date for the pier?
No, I think as I mentioned last time, we did issue the notice to proceed. The contractor's still not gotten back to us with final dates. The contract did stipulate that once that notice to proceed was issued, they'd have 90 days to complete the project. Wow. So we will let you know as soon as we know anything.
Great.
Most of that 90 days will be taken up in them organizing everything. The work itself will probably take 30 or thereabouts.
Sure. Any other questions from the council?
A question. It's my understanding, I know the concept of salvaging some material from Romeo Pier has been responded by that it's contaminated, can't do it. I do know that there are contracts that, not an expert on the costs, everything, it can be handled. Certainly, it's going to be put on a barge, unloaded from a barge onto a truck.
I don't know means and methods, but I know the first part, yes, loaded into a barge.
Yeah. I know it would be complicated. I think it was another council member that mentioned that there would be nice to somehow, in some way, save
And I
some of
think,
the history. I mean,
I think the most
that
really,
if we remove lead from a small amount of material, I don't think the cost would be prohibitive. I do know that there, I believe in the museum in Stanford, it was just recently abated with lead. So I mean, they preserved the history. They dealt with the lead issue in a safe way.
yeah.
And I know it's done all the time.
I'm not sure
So-
how, well, first of all, I mean,
The will is-
certainly, anything is possible. I'm not sure how green the green pier would be after we'd abated for the lead paint. There is also asbestos. pilings are creosote.
On the wood? Well, certainly
there's
not-
asbestos-containing materials on the pier.
Right.
The first step for the contractor has got to be abatement.
Right.
And the primary goal in that process has got to be protection of the environment. We've got to make sure, I mean, it's one thing for a clean wood chip to fall into the water.
Right.
I mean,
We would be talking about after it was on a truck and out of the way, in a safe place to then be looked at, you know, at the storage area before it goes into the hazardous waste landfill. I don't know where it's gonna go.
That's
right?
where it'll be going.
So before, away from the harbor, somewhere in
Yeah.
between.
Well, I'll tell you what, I mean, I'll bring it up with the contractor. We'll see, their contract and the contract specs were very simply to make it go away. Anything other than that would be
An additional contract.
An additional cost, abatement of and actually come to think of it, the abatement of the lead paint, I'm not sure how that's going to be handled exactly, but that has to be handled per contract specs and probably air quality
Yeah.
permits.
I mean, I know it's done all the time. It's dealt with all the time.
Okay, so I'm gonna.
So it's just, I do recognize it would be an additional.
Yeah, Dan, it's a good point, and I think Steve will go off and check, so.
Yeah.
Did you have something you wanted
I don't know
to say?
if I should add to this or not. But if I did add to it, I would say it would be best if you got somebody who had some interest in this that could maybe take some responsibility for looking into what possibilities would be to preserve it. It's a lot to ask Steve to do, but it would be really nice to have happen.
I commit to a good photo documentation.
I think that would be
here
great.
before it comes down.
Okay.
Great, thank you very much, Steve.
All right.
All right. I'm going to move the government report. I'm going to close the government report section. And we will move on to public comment. If anybody has public comment, I don't have any slips. No? Okay, I'll move public comment. We're on to consent agenda. We have one item on the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
I so move.
Second?
Second.
All right, all in favor? Aye. Okay, carried 7-0, thank you. And we're on to our first regular agenda item, which is the RCD water quality report. Brittany Lee?
Projector?
Yes, we will need the projector, thank you. Welcome, thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Swear I put a new bulb in there.
There we go. That's already off, okay. All right.
All right. Well, thank you for having us. My name is Brittany Bolke,
And I'm Julian Carroll.
and let's see. I think last year we ended up doing a first flush presentation for you guys, and this year we kind of decided to make it a little more general and just give you guys an update about what the Resource Conservation District and other partners in the community are doing. So it's kind of where we're at tonight. So first, the Resource Conservation District, in case nobody knows, we're a local special district of the USDA. We're non-regulatory, and we provide technical assistance to a variety of landowners and organizations. We have 4 main program areas, including water, climate, wildlife, and agriculture. And Julian and I mostly work in the water program, and specifically with water quality, so that's what we're going to focus on tonight. So just kind of a summary of our programs. They can largely be thought of as citizen science efforts that include water quality monitoring with volunteers, and also focusing on bacterial pollution in some of our local watersheds that have an impact on our beaches. And so we kind of have 3 main focus areas right now. And these are because there's either a regulation associated with them or there is going to be. So there have been, a lot of partners and other responsible organizations coming forward in recent years. And so just to kind of summarize the people and the partners and organizations that are involved in this work in the community, we've actually come together recently in this group and started calling it Cosine One Water. Sam is actually the one that started this. And so we've had a few meetings, and it's basically served as a platform for us all to talk about our different efforts, compile our resources, and share information. So our first event actually is going to be this Sunday at Dream Machines. We're going to have a table there and kind of have information about what each of these agencies is doing for water on the coast side.
So I'm going to speak a little bit about the citizen science part of what we do, and what that really means is that we're really engaging with the community and working with volunteers to really kind of get these data sets that we wouldn't be able to get otherwise. So for both First Flush and Snapshot Day, we do a bunch of outreach and recruit a bunch of volunteers, teach them about water quality, you know, the work we do, why it matters, and then we teach them how to sample, and we build these teams together so they can go out and collect this data for us. And so it's this really awesome opportunity where we get to get these really amazing data sets that we wouldn't be able to collect ourselves, and at the same time really get the community involved, get them excited about the work we're doing, and teach them why it matters, really. So First Flush, you may know, is the first big rain of the season, where after the dry season, all of the pollutants that have built up on the landscape. It's that first big rain that really kind of flushes everything out into the creeks and storm drains, and so we go out and sample that. And as well as Snapshot Day, which, as the moniker suggests, is kind of just there to give us a snapshot, like a day in the life of these watersheds, and to really kind of understand what the problems are, what to look into, things like that. And so springboarding off of that, actually, in case you don't know, Snapshot Day is coming up. Our training will actually be in this room this Saturday at 1 p.m. So hopefully, if you're interested in the work we're doing, you've already heard about that. If not, great, I'm here to tell you now. So it'll be really exciting work. We're happy to have a bunch of volunteers who have signed up already. And the actual sampling day event will be on May 5th in the harbor. And so just real quick, I'm going to go over some of the results from our last First Flush event from late last year. And before I do, just a quick rundown of some of the lingo that I'm going to use. Generally, when people talk about thresholds or exceedances and things like that, people might think it's a good thing. In this case, not so much. It means that if we've exceeded this water quality objective, exceeded this threshold, it means that there's a certain level we want these pollutants to be below. And if we've exceeded that, that's a bad thing. We're in the red zone. So I'm just going to give kind of a brief overview of the data we've collected thus far. So first off, bacteria. Out of all the samples we've collected from 2008 to 2017, all of our sample sites, we've had a 98% exceedance rate, which doesn't look too great.
No bueno.
Yeah, okay. So the highest exceedances we've seen are at Capistrano Street and Surfer South. Following that up is orthophosphates. We're seeing really high levels of those as well, 72% exceedance rate. That's at West Point and El Granada. And so copper and zinc, 55 and 30% exceedance rate respectively. We're seeing high levels of those over at Vassar and West Point, places over there in the harbor. Some good news is that over all of our sampling, we've never had any exceedances of lead, nitrates, or total suspended solids. So, some good news, some not so great, which is to be expected.
Where is the El Granada ditch?
The El Granada ditch is, it's...
Burnham Street, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
So what is the foot?
Right by that skate ramp.
At the foot of Portoc.
So can you tell me why 98% exceedance rate for bacteria is a bad thing? I mean, bacteria is everywhere.
This is samples that are over threshold.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
fecal bacteria.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I can delve more into that if you'd like.
Okay, next. Sure.
The West Point, Vassar,
Mm-hmm.
Romeo Packing is a chemical fertilizer company, and they unload and have the pallets of bagged orthophosphate, whatever, all day, every day. Has anybody thought to look at that? I mean, I can't imagine that that doesn't just gradually build up on the street.
Yeah, so I remember we talked about this a little
said
bit
it
last year,
year.
which is great. So actually, someone from the county got in contact with us and followed up on that with them. And I can give you the name of that person, but he basically looked into that situation and worked with them. And so I can tell you who that is, and you can follow up with him. But it sounds like they were very responsive to that, and I know that the county has also been updating their protocols for inspecting businesses when it comes to hazardous waste. They just did a training in February, and so I feel like they're pretty on it, and that inspector actually came and was a first flush volunteer this year, so that was pretty cool. But in general, as far as kind of following up on those pollutants, unfortunately, besides any of the areas where we're seeing high bacteria, the RCD personally doesn't have funding to follow up on the other pollutants. So it's kind of up to the community to be, bringing things up and having the county check things out, or, fundraising or whatever. If we want to follow specific pollutants in specific locations, then we can kind of try to start having that conversation through things like Cosine One Water.
So there is a Princeton Code Compliance Task Force with a group of people that meet. Ellie, you were with them.
Yes, and we have
So you
them
have the
coming to a
information.
future meeting.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Thanks.
Excellent.
And would that be the same answer for microplastics?
Yeah, currently the RCD doesn't do anything on microplastics, but we're open to all ideas, and that's actually kind of how we operate, is just whatever projects we think need to be done, we'll just start reaching out and often apply for grants to do projects. So it's just a matter of kind of hearing from the community and coming together and putting together an actual project design, and then we can apply to grants. So, maybe there's a way that we can let the community know more about when those Cosine One Water meetings are, so that we can be getting more input about things like that. And it's a very new thing, so maybe the person to talk to would be Beverly Marshall at SAM about the best way to do that, because I'm not sure what that is.
I would guess that most of the microplastics are going through the sewage system in this area, so she'd be a good person to talk to.
Yeah, so that can be something that we can discuss at these meetings that we've started having now about each agency's role in water quality and things like that. So we just kind of started talking and getting together, and right now we're focusing on education in the community and pet waste.
So from your vantage point at RCD, have you found any information that microplastics are a concern for the future, or do you have?
I
is it something
personally think that they are, yes. I haven't done any work at that for the RCD related to that.
Claire, do you have something?
In relation to the One Water program, I think that's very exciting. Are the meetings at this point ready for public attendance, or are they formalized yet, or is that yet to come?
Yeah, see, that's what I'm not sure of how all of that works. We've had like 3 meetings, and we just started producing like a banner and materials that we're going to have this weekend at Dream Machines. But as far as like the legality and logistics of that, I'm not sure.
Let us know,
Steve? Yeah, sorry.
Well, I jump in on that, and these are very much, certainly at this point, preliminary and staff level meetings. The last one was conducted entirely over the phone, with people conferencing into a conference line. But as Brittany said, we're working on some promotional materials where we're trying to all be consistent in the message that we get out about clean water.
Well, speaking for myself and probably for the council, we would like to be in the loop as things develop.
Absolutely.
We're certainly happy to publicize it and put them on our calendar that a lot of people look at.
Great, thank you. Okay, so I'll just quickly kind of talk about the bacteria and beach water quality programs. As I mentioned, these efforts are kind of focused in 3 main areas right now: Pillar Point, San Vicente Creek, and San Pedro Creek. And much like our other programs, First Flush and Snapshot Day, we are focusing on fresh water. So we're focusing on stormwater coming off the landscape, running through storm drains, as well as creeks, rather than in the ocean itself. But these two things are tied together because where this fresh water kind of connects to the ocean is where that contribution can be impacting what's happening at the beach, such as kayaking, swimming, recreation. So you guys have probably seen these signs around at certain places saying that the water is not suitable for contact. And that is because of the fecal bacteria that is either, well, it's probably either coming in the fresh water and or from the ocean water itself. So here's just kind of a little blurb on some things that we've been doing and ways that we're addressing this with our partners. And that is first to just continue to identify potential sources. And the sources of this fecal matter are really endless, ranging from raccoons and rats to chickens and birds, horses, humans. So you basically have to do a comprehensive watershed-wide assessment and try to parse out what is happening and what the potential sources are. And it's usually, many things that are going on. And so one of our big efforts, as I mentioned, is the education and outreach. And so really coming together with Cosine One Water, I think, has been key, and starting to not only get the message, we'll talk between the agencies and see how we can help each other, but also getting out educational material about stormwater and ways that homeowners and kids and all of us can help. And so kind of along those lines, RCD is going to be doing a pet waste cleanup on probably the trails around Pillar Point Bluffs and Mavericks during the weekend of Oceans Week. So we're going to be trying to get some volunteers for that coming up. And other examples of things that we're working on are working with like farms that have runoff or ranches where you can help them manage their drainage and stormwater before it enters the creek, and keeping that water clean, looking at some stormwater and sewer infrastructure like we've been doing down in the harbor, on harbor property, also a little bit with the county on Capistrano Road, and then trying to assess if there are opportunities for green infrastructure like rain gardens and bioswales and things like that. So here's just a couple pictures of some things that we've been up to. You can see some tabling events, monitoring. The picture on the bottom is actually a newly built sort of rain garden erosion control at a homeowner's property in the San Vicente watershed. And we did a demo for the community. That was a few years ago. But we did 7 of those projects to kind of help with pollution going to the Fitzgerald Marine Reserve. The chicken is the same sort of project. We built chicken coop roofs, and the whole idea is to keep clean water clean. And so those are some of our other practices. And then the top middle picture was this last fall when we did some inspections and cleaning of the harbor stormwater lines and cleaned those out and started mapping them and trying to understand, where some repairs can be done and just cleanup events, stuff like that.
And so springboarding off of what Brittany said about keeping clean water clean, when someone reaches out to us and says, what can I do to help? I'm interested in water quality work. What matters? What can I do to help? Well, there are obviously a few things that are a little more obvious than others, such as cleaning up trash and litter. Those everyone probably generally has an understanding of. But there's also things that maybe people won't think about so much. As Brittany commented on, we have a pet waste outreach effort to let people know, any of your dog poop that you leave on the trails might end up on the beach you go surfing in tomorrow. And so like concepts like that, as well as any kind of irrigation you do in your home, if any of that runs off into the storm drain network, any fertilizers or anything like that you have will probably enter the watershed, and we don't want any of that. Similar to, if you do any work on your car, oil changes, things like that. Really, the basic idea is the only thing you really want going into a storm drain is stormwater. So thank you for having us. Obviously, we love talking about this on end. So if you have any questions, we're happy to hear them. Again, this, Brittany and Julian, please contact us with any comments you have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other council questions or comments? Dan?
Yes. I'm wondering if RCD can advocate, glad Supervisor Horsley, aide Ellie's here as well. The county could advocate this too. Maybe the Harbor District could advocate. The City of Half Moon Bay could advocate for this. There's a problem, and that is that the litter on the side of Highway, Highway 1 is just, in some areas, it's just neglected. So on Saturday, I was driving down and I noticed, a lot of plastic. It's just there, and now we all know with the winds, it constantly blows to the ocean and adds to the problems there. So, I know there's other groups, but I'm wondering, is it possible that somehow RCD, the County Sanitary, Harbor District, City of Half Moon Bay can advocate to Caltrans to, take a little, do whatever it takes to step up. And I mean, there's literally, I've seen debris on the side of Highway 1 for, probably more than a year. It's just neglected, just overlooked, just not. I think it's an important first step, an effective step.
Yeah, the last pet waste cleanup that we did, we actually ended up just picking up trash.
Yeah, it ended up becoming a trash cleanup more than a pet waste cleanup.
And the dog waste that we did find was in bags, which, that's still not good. But at least a lot of people bag it, but then they leave it. So we actually kind of just turned it into a trash cleanup, and that's what we'll continue to do. We talked to the county about that. This was just in the San Vicente, so just right in this area, the San Vicente watershed, and sorry, I was up there earlier today. I agree. I was shocked at how bad it was in that area. So I definitely think that is something that we want to continue to do and try to expand that as much as we can. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Is it unreasonable to suggest that letters written or somehow, personal phone call to the right contact, Caltrans or anything? I know Caltrans got a lot of stuff on the plate.
Caltrans is a good idea.
But they can, all they have to do is make the policy set up so it's automatic to where work furlough people or volunteers, or they just need to take action.
Yeah.
There was a suggestion that we set up Caltrans has this program where they work with groups to clean the highway sides once a quarter typically. And when we talked about it, I think it was actually after the presentation last year, as a matter of fact, we didn't get enough interest to pursue that, but Caltrans is happy to work with community organizations that want to commit to doing that. And the MCC could certainly head that up if we can get enough people interested.
Are you talking
So
about
we have a
that
contact?
Or something else?
It's a program where they come out with their crews and their vests, and once a quarter, you walk the sides of the highways and clean stuff up.
I want more.
I
I want more than once a quarter. It's-
Well, I would
It's,
like more too,
24/7.
but it's a start. We don't even have that right now.
Yeah.
Do we have a contact with Caltrans?
Yeah, we've got contacts, but that.
For that
pro-
specific,
For that program, it's a general program that you go to on their webpage.
So it's Adopt a Highway, and if you go to the Caltrans website, there's a bunch of information about it and who to contact to apply for it, and I did that a year or so ago and never got an answer. And then
so that's a specific program, yes, and that's good.
And then you get
But-
your name on the sign, Adopt a Highway. The one there, Moss Beach has no adopter.
It's,
It's been like that for years, why I called, but they didn't call me back.
So we can try that again, and if you're asking, can we get Caltrans to clean the highway? The answer is probably no, they're short of staff, but we could actually.
So what I'm asking is that Caltrans set up the policy to make things, now that Adopt the Highway, that's not the answer to everything. It's helpful, does something, but we need to build on that.
Okay,
and have other-
so this is
so
probably
that's-
getting off water quality, so we should probably make that a separate agenda item if you want to follow up on it. I think it's a good idea. You can certainly go to Caltrans directly and talk to them, and the council can take it up. Any other questions or comments?
I will just quickly add that the county itself is their new department, Office of Sustainability, is really starting to have a presence here over on the coast side. And so, and they're coming to Cosine One Water, and they're involved in this other stuff. And so it's good because they are really starting to hear what the needs are out here, and we are bringing those to them. And so I just had a conversation with them a few months ago, and they're starting a new trash cleanup program, and they weren't going to have a single coastside location. So I talked to them about, I was like, what, So it's good to be reminded, all of us that care about this, of all of these issues, because, there's so many seemingly sometimes that I forget about certain things. So I'm glad to hear that concern, and I'm gonna keep bringing that up whenever I can, and just kind of keep it in mind for future opportunities.
Great. And
Yeah.
if
Thank you.
You need more support with the county, we're happy to provide them.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you. Really appreciate your coming out. Oh, and I meant to ask one other question. So the full First Plus results are on the RCD website, right?
They should be. Are they up there yet?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Our next agenda item is the Moss Beach Chevron and the violation notice. We had tried to get John Riddell, the fire marshal deputy, who's commented on that, and Olivia Boo, the planner. Thank you, Steve. And unfortunately, neither of them were able to make it tonight, but we may follow up with John Riddell directly to try and reach a consensus on what they would accept or suggest. So Lisa, take it away.
So I thought it'd be useful to just review and update as, so this has been going on since 2011. So this is about highway access and the landscape buffer. First, a quick review of government policies and regulations that we seek to have enforced. Limiting Midcoast Highway 1 access openings to improve safety and mobility is recommended by the Midcoast Highway 1 Safety and Mobility Study, and it is an LCP policy. Caltrans classifies the Midcoast section of Highway 1 as an expressway, which limits allowed access openings. Access from adjacent side streets is preferred. County zoning regulations require a minimum of 4-foot wide landscape buffer between parking areas and the adjacent street to provide visual and physical separation to reduce traffic hazards for pedestrians. Zoning regulations also limit the area of impervious surface on a parcel to reduce runoff. For modification of existing development, net increase in impervious area is not allowed. Very familiar with this. When Pillar Ridge recently added a long concrete clubhouse ADA ramp, the county required removal of the equivalent area of impervious surface. So we had to take out part of a concrete deck and make that into landscaping. So the Moss Beach Chevron is on the west side of Highway 1 at the corner of Vermont, and the parcel, actually it extends all the way to Lancaster. These April 2011 Google Street View images show the former landscape island on the highway frontage. DPW comments indicate it was 63 by 13 feet. As you can see, it was mostly bare dirt with very few plants, but it split the highway frontage into 2 access openings. The Vermont frontage has 2 access openings with a curb and a sidewalk. So the landscape area was removed in June 2011, and that left us with 144-foot wide unrestricted vehicle access. That's the red line, which is basically a hazardous no man's land. I mean, it's hazardous for cars, but it's really scary for pedestrians or even bicyclists. It's like, you know, vehicles turn right or left into and out of the gas station anywhere between Vermont and Lancaster, disregarding pavement markings. Vehicle movement is often sudden and quick during gaps in traffic on the high-speed highway. The MCC requests reduce highway access opening to 60 feet wide maximum. That's represented by the blue line. So the timeline, as I mentioned, it was removed in 2011. This issue was brought up by community members at the Highway 1 Safety and Mobility Study meetings in early 2012. It's been 6 years since I first inquired to planning in April that year, and 4 years since the MCC formal request for code enforcement in 2014. I didn't clutter up this timeline with the many times I asked for updates. The violation case was finally opened in February 2016 with a requirement for a coastal development permit and hearing before the Planning Commission. The application for the CDP was finally submitted in June 2012, but there has been no permit activity since the fire district comments last August. They stated they would prefer that the planter box not be added as part of the landscaping, as it may be a possible traffic hazard during ingress and egress of the station. This is the site plan we commented on last summer. The red line is the proposed 3 by 34-foot replacement planter. The green lines are the MCC request to extend the planter to Vermont with minimum 4-foot width, leaving reduced highway access from the 144 feet that's there now down to 60 feet, and that would be on the south end on the right. This will encourage the use of Vermont Street access. The proposed curb planter, the curb is 6 inches high and the whole thing is 3 feet across. So the curb takes up a third of the planter space, the width. So the soil volume for plant growth is 2 feet wide and 1 foot deep, limited by the geotech fiber and the base rock. So no matter how drought tolerant, the plant viability will be poor in this extremely limited soil volume. We discussed a similar concern at our last meeting regarding lack of landscape success at Harbor Village parking lot. Basically, it's my theory that that's what it looks like. And they put the parking lot in and then they just sort of, after the fact, add the planter. So as the emergency vehicle access, at the July 2017 MCC meeting, the applicant said a longer planter or reducing highway access to one opening was not acceptable. due to truck turning movements. He said vehicles had driven over the previous planter, damaging the planter and the vehicles. These photos taken March 31st of the fuel delivery truck demonstrate that full use of the corner location using the access on Vermont accommodates large truck turning movements with no restriction or hazard caused by a landscape buffer with reduced highway access opening as proposed by MCC. We haven't heard yet what specific site access needs CAL FIRE has, but there is additional through access available around the back of the convenience store. The fire hydrant is right there on the corner at Vermont. And the wide paved area, the highway shoulder, all along the front of the gas station could accommodate large trucks double parked. It's sort of used as a truck stop area. Big trucks come in, they just pull off into the shoulder area and do whatever they want to do, but they could still do that even if there's a curve along that edge. So a summary of the comments here. These are, I put draft comments because these are somewhat more specific than what we approved last summer, and therefore we need council approval. Please expedite the CDP to resolve this longstanding violation, reduce highway access opening from the existing 144 feet to a maximum of 60 feet wide, restore highway frontage landscape buffer with minimum of 4 feet width and adequate soil depth connecting directly to native soil. Extend proposed landscape buffer north to the property corner at Vermont. Restore the full 819 square feet of landscape area. No net increase of impervious surface. So my recommendation would be that the council, that we have a motion that the council accept this update presentation and approve the summary of comments.
And were you thinking we would send it immediately or wait until we talk it over with?
Oh, as far as
Fire
the,
department.
well, basically, I just want to make sure this is solid so we can put this out there. But then as far as next steps, I would think that since you've already made contact with the fire marshal, we need to get with him and work on whatever he could agree to. And that site visit, and I would propose that the council allow Dave and I to pursue that. And then also, I think perhaps as far as motivating the county to expedite this, it needs to have a wider distribution than just sent to the planner. Particularly, I want to make sure Diana Shue gets it, DPW. She had commented last summer and said, what is this? That's where I got the dimensions from. So we can talk about the distribution. But
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to approve these draft comments.
Second.
Okay. Does anybody want to discuss it or just take a vote?
The comment.
I mean, I guess, I'm not sure where to start in terms of the fire marshal. Like, it seems like we keep butting up against this.
it's a different one. Now, Mark Vonderground's
Okay,
gone.
but I guess, yeah, I know Mark's gone, but here we have again where the hypothetical access of ever-increasing vehicles is dictating and overriding existing policy. And I guess one question I had for you was with the egress and ingress that he was concerned about. Is that only for emergency vehicles?
Well,
or
it
for any vehicles?
sounded like he was concerned about overall traffic safety when we were exchanging email. He did not amplify on that. He's the one that wrote the comments. And so I think I don't want to guess at what he really meant until we talked to him.
Was he asked for comments or did he
Yes.
volunteer comments?
He sent the
By
referral
Olivia?
last summer.
And, yeah, along with everybody else that gets the referrals for these.
And I'm not sure if I'm confusing this with another project, but did I see in some correspondence that, yeah, that Olivia is new to this project, that somebody else was working on it before? It seemed to me, I recall some kind of change in, or maybe it was the compliance officer had
Well,
changed?
yeah, lots changed. I mean, when initially, code compliance was very short-staffed. And James Hinkamp, he was the ombudsman. He was doing some initial research with Caltrans to determine whether, and then he left. And it languished again. And it was Anna Santiago, she was the code compliance. And then when the violation was somewhere, Summer Burleson was also involved. I don't know whether just because the stuff came across her desk, but that was how we got the referral last summer. Otherwise, we wouldn't have.
Okay, so then, so since 2011, with no, so let me ask you this then, backing up without seeing the actual file, has there been any penalty of any kind on this property for this at all, for the unpermitted removal? Do we need permits to do things, or do we not need permits to do things?
So the way it works is they are told you're in violation, and to remedy this, you need to come in and apply for a CDP. And at that point, that could be, they came in with an offer, well, here, we'll put this in. And whether that would fly or not, we don't know. But the thing is, at this point now, the violation file says this is being dealt with at planning through this PLN number. But there is no motivation for the owner to get this done in an expedited way. And it also, obviously, once the fire replied, everything came to a halt. Well, I don't see how that can be the end of it anyway. They still haven't resolved the violation. So this is what Dave and I propose that we work more energetically in this direction. But first we need to resolve where the fire marshal stands on what we're asking for.
Okay, so I see that, I'm sorry, one more question. Sorry. I see that the CDP application was submitted. Was that kind of what we talked about with Ron Paskovic about?
Yes, so it was the referral on that application that we had last summer.
Okay, so they did file for it, but now it's just kind of...
No action since August.
It's asleep right now.
It's
Okay.
been
So
blocked.
basically, periodically, I go to the county website and I check on all these pending things I have in the works. And then I say, well, that's how I saw the fire marshal had commented. And I said, well, could we have a copy of that? That was last fall. And then I checked again recently and realized that there had been no activity at all. So I wrote to the planner and said, could we have a site visit? Could we, what? And nothing. That was a month ago. So.
Thanks for the follow-up, Lisa and Dave.
Okay. Brandon and Claire?
So, what I'm understanding is that you're asking to reiterate the comments we made last year?
These are a little more specific than our letter last July. The letter's posted and part of your packet on the website.
Yeah.
And it was worded more like, well, consider this and this. So now we're saying, this is what we like. And also, this is a very concise list, because I noticed in this particular case that's needed. When we are paraphrased, it doesn't come out well.
But but if the fire marshals already said no to this.
But they haven't. They just
No.
expressed a concern about traffic safety.
And it wasn't really about their access. We need to know what access they need.
Yeah.
Because it just seems to me, this building is, where's the building?
So that may be their concern, it may not be. We need to find out.
This
specifics.
building is like 40 by 20. It's one story. And, we had this discussion on Capistrano Road where there's this big hotel and everything, and they wanted to be able to park along there so they can reach the hydrants. But they never said they needed to take out all the landscaping in front of the hotel so they could drive up. They never said that, And here, in this situation, the building is much smaller. The hydrant's right there next to this shoulder. So it just seems like it would be better to be on site with the fire guy and talk this through and cut to the chase.
There?
A couple of very brief comments. Is it unusual for a permit to be unprocessed this long? Or is this kind of within the realm of what you expect?
I think, Well, once it got out of the code compliance section and they got the actual, they told the applicant, the property owner, they needed a CDP, yeah, I think that it's working very slowly because they don't want to do it. They don't want to replace the landscape, so it's taken a long time.
But they have an application file.
They're not pushing, the property owner's not pushing to complete this, and it appears that planning is not pushing to complete.
So it's
this.
sort of
It took
stalled.
over an hour, a year, it took over an hour. It took over a year to get, it's like, you can see the timeline, it's just taking
Okay.
a long time.
All right. Obviously, the place to deal with this is what you guys are proposing to do in working with the relevant agencies. But from a public point of view, I just have to say from my own perspective, I'm used to this gas station, it's down the street from me. For a long time, when you first brought it up and I was new on the council, I was thinking, this is nitpicky. But it is not. I mean, I go in there all the time. The more I am aware of the issues, the more frightened I am of going in there. It's just no man's land. There's things coming right and left. And I wish that there were more people here tonight, or maybe there's people looking at the TV who would start thinking about this issue and recognizing that there is a hazard and that we should pay attention.
As you look at the photo I took, as I stood there, when I first got there, the truck was over there with doing the fueling, and I waited for him to move. And just in the 5 minutes I was there, 3 cars came out, the ones that are gassing up right at the edge, 3 cars came out and turned, and went all the way across the highway and turned going north, and whereas they could go out onto Vermont and turn onto the highway in the normal way. But, they see this wide opening, and, it's human nature. You see this wide opening, you think, I'll just zip in here, then I'll just zip back out, and rather than go over to the side street and enter, And I think even if they close this off, I think that'll make it safer. The way they had it before, with the 2 entrances, it invites people to get involved in the wrong idea. You need to focus people over to Vermont when they can.
Okay. I'll come back to you after everybody else. Dan?
Yes. Do you agree to mitigate any potential traffic hazard that it's relatively easy to build a kind of a low profile and a kind of a sloped curb instead of a sharp 90-degree curb? So if for any reason somebody has to, go up on the planter, it wouldn't be a safety hazard.
I don't understand what that scenario would be. I mean, you see the fuel truck going all the way through that gas station, and he's going nowhere near where this planter would be. He goes in on Vermont, and he goes out at the other end. He's not anywhere near that.
But I think if the applicant wanted to submit plans for that, we would have no concerns about it.
Or even if it was a something.
The point I'm making, it's an easy remedy.
It's a remedy, but it's sort of like saying, well, all curbs everywhere should be sloped, and some cities like that and others don't. And I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other. It doesn't seem to be a big issue.
They don't want the planter there. They want the frontage wide open.
I know that. I'm suggesting that, if there's conversation with whoever is claiming that planter would be a safety hazard.
Only the station owner has claimed that.
The fire department has.
No, the fire department did not say that.
Their egress and egress.
They had what sounds.
I thought I read that up on.
They have what sounds to me like a very offhanded comment about maybe there could be traffic safety issues.
Okay, so whoever has the issue, communicate that, that is a very easy remedy to that issue.
Yeah,
and
but
that we want to have the planter.
Yeah, we can certainly suggest that to the owner if that's their concern. And I think something to that effect did get talked about when they were here last year.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on a second. So You want to say anything?
Well, the only thing I want to say is that car that's turning and heading north is breaking the law because that's a double yellow line. They can't be turning there anyway.
Yep.
And you see that all day long.
All day long.
All day.
Yep.
And that to me is more dangerous than a planter.
Yep, we've tried to get that situation in the center of the highway in Moss Beach addressed, and so far we haven't been able to, but I agree, it's actually an illegal left turn. Coming back, Brandon, you had something else?
So if you, just a question, so if you leave 60 feet of space, won't people still try to find a way to get in there from the highway?
Well, that's the idea behind having plants in the planter. It makes it obvious there's something there. If it's bare dirt, it's not so obvious to a lot of people who are in a hurry, but if there's plants in it, then it's very obvious there's something there.
Well, the 60 feet that we're proposing as a maximum for the access opening that will remain was a number I just picked. It's basically, the access openings at the Half Moon Bay Chevron are like 40 feet. So this is even bigger. It's bigger than any access opening. It's bigger than most coastside streets. But I figured it's a great improvement. At least it's a lot less than 144 feet. And how can they, I'm trying to propose something that they really can't argue against. So that's why I was generous with that number, but we could change that if people want to.
Chris?
A couple of high-level comments. Three, the safety issue of that was quoted by the fire marshal. Yeah, we really have to follow up on that because I'm mildly offended by that offhand comment because it is clearly much more of a safety hazard to have 160 feet of wide. There could be from Vermont, 2 cars at the bays and a car coming out. There could be 4 cars turning onto the highway at the same time from there. There is no safety issue that would be more dangerous than that raised by having a planter there. 2, I defy you to find another gas station anywhere that has this level of open access to the highway. It's not allowed and it's not done for safety reasons. So again, going back to the fire marshal's comment, was either ill-informed, flip, or possibly some other motive for that comment. It doesn't make sense to me and it defies logic. Again, find another gas station that has this level of open access. There's not, because there's rules for that. And then the last thing is, why is the MCC still on this and things like Cosine several years later? Because, well, it was under my impression that we're a rule of law country and we have ordinances. If there are ordinances in place, if there's an LCP in place, people are being required to follow those, other people are being required to follow those rules. Fines are being imposed. La Costanera has a $500,000 fine on them right now for not following the rules that everybody's supposed to follow. And to me, that's one of the reasons, in addition to the safety, that it's important that this be followed up on. This is clearly a violation of several different ordinances, statutes, rules that you pointed out at the beginning. It's dangerous. It has been called out several times, and for some reason, ... it continues to be allowed to operate this way. I don't have anything against this business or this business owner who has not been named here and doesn't need to be named. It's not about that person necessarily, but this is a flagrant violation, and if this is going to be allowed right out in the open, I would say, why does anybody need to follow any rules? Why do we even have rules if it can just be determined, I don't like it, I don't want to do it, I'm going to drag my feet? I would ask the county, if anybody from the county is listening to this in code compliance or planning, the rules are there. Why can't we follow up on these rules? If this prominent business is allowed to not follow the rules, why should anybody? And that's not how the MCC feels, and that's why, in my opinion, this is an important issue to me, and I thank Lisa and Dave for following up on this and doggedly pursuing this for several years, because it is dangerous, and it is in violation of code. Thank you, Lisa and Dave.
I just want to say that I put this together, and with these ordinances and things that I have found along the way, because another handicap with these things taking so long to get addressed, you have changeover. And so the council somebody needs to remember, we were working on this, and that these regulations exist, these may be useful for other projects. So this is an attempt to memorialize that. It'll be there on the website.
Yep. Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Comments?
Both of you are scheduling an appointment with the fire marshal to do a site visit. Is that correct?
Trying to set one up, yeah.
We call for a vote?
If there's no other discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Aye. Okay, carried 7-0. Thank you very much.
At your discretion, we might like to hear from the fire marshal and other relevant people at a subsequent meeting.
If we think it's a big enough discrepancy issue, whatever, we'll certainly bring it back and put something anyway.
Otherwise, you would report your discussions by email.
Yeah, we'll report the discussion, and we'll probably send a letter without waiting for discussion, unless, as I say, it turns out there's some significant issue.
A letter based on the
The
additional
points
comments.
that
we
in
saw.
Lisa's last slide, yes. All right, I believe we are on to council activities. Anybody have council activities that we're
I'll let you go first.
Well, Barbara and Lisa and Brandon and I were all at the open office meeting at the harbor. I think various ones of us brought up different things. I reiterated the highway crossings at Highway 1 in Moss Beach, which aren't there, and also asked Don about the possibility of getting some action on our zoning change requests, which he is not entirely opposed to.
good. Anybody else want to report on that or anything else?
Oh, you could go first.
No, you go.
All right, sure. So I attended the same office hours. I suggested to both Don and Virginia Curly Chang, they should hold this dual office hours. It used to be just donuts with Don, but since they added Virginia, they still have donuts and coffee, but donuts with Virginia doesn't really rhyme, so. But I believe that having both of them does help with the variety of issues. I've enjoyed discussing some other issues that would not be appropriate to bring up here on the council due to its geographic nature, its countywide nature. And speaking of countywide nature, I've attended another charter meeting, the county charter meeting. So many of these members are interviewing elected officials, including Mr. Horsley and the other supervisors, on their experiences and how their department works, on whether it's better than whether it's better an appointed official rather than an elected official heading a department. Right now we have a variety of executive offices elected in the county, and the charter committee members are trying to study and decide whether to either make them appointed or separate some of the executive offices. And I will not be able to attend the next meeting, which is on May 2nd, because it's my birthday, so I will be off then, but I will be attending the second meeting of the month in May, and so from my understanding, the charter committee will finish up their studies and it will disband in June unless they do have a delay. So then they will have to vote to extend for another meeting or so.
Okay. Lisa, did you want to add anything to that?
Oh, so when I went to the Cosine office hours, I had a chance to ask to run it by Don about the Caltrans vegetation management ideas we had talked about, that perhaps the county might play a role as, to get that initial work done, and to have the encroachment permit. And he didn't seem thrilled with that idea, and he suggested that I send the material to you, but basically, and he suggested that we contact State Senator Jerry Hill's office, and I mentioned how that worked to get a reply last time, but the answer wasn't what we wanted to hear. But clearly, we need to do some more work and demonstrate to him that we're willing to work on this, and we'll see how it goes. But so that'll be my next step on that, reaching out. So it's good to know that. And so on Valamar Bluff, four-house development, the initial study mitigated neg deck will be revised and recirculated due to comments received, particularly from California Department of Fish and Wildlife. The applicant's biologist will do an updated plant survey this spring to document any changes in distribution of rare plants. The applicant is updating the conservation easement document and working with county parks on the rare plant protection and stormwater runoff. Hopefully all the loose ends will be resolved before the project comes to the Planning Commission. The Arbor Lane Bluff-top development, that environmental document will have a 20-day review. It's due out next week. There is a new county page where secret documents are posted. You can find the link on the MCC Planning and Zoning page.
Thank you.
And yes, and one other thing about the county tree ordinance, there's a county page on the tree ordinance update. If you want to read any of that and previous documents from the steering committee, you can find the link to that page on the MCC Planning and Zoning page. That's all I have.
Great. Any other council activity? Yeah, Chris?
So Dave, I know you were there last night, it seems like about a week ago, but it was only last night. The Quarry Park Master Plan meeting, I believe this was meeting number 4. I didn't get there till 8 o'clock because I had a Little League game. So Dave, I'd like to hear what happened in the first hour. The second hour, to me, felt a lot like the last 3 meetings, which is some people want some things, some people are not happy with where those things are. They're not in agreement, and the moderator doesn't quite know what to do, and so then defaults to, well, why don't you go and put your comments on the thing? We'll compile those comments, and then we'll. So I asked Sam Hersberg, who was there, like, well, what's going to happen now? Are we going to have another meeting? And he said, no, we're going to compile these into a draft document and then present to planning or to Board of Supervisors. Parks Commission. Okay, thank you. So that. But I did not get any sense of consensus or resolution or anything. It just kind of felt like the moderator, and in fact, there was a member of the community who's on the Parks Advisory Committee who I had spoken with earlier in the week, who wanted to propose a different location and was trying to get the crowd's attention to say, what if we meet and look at this additional location that might satisfy all the different groups here, but because the moderator had kind of decided she couldn't know what to do and go and look and make your comments, everybody started breaking up, and so the person that was trying to get everybody's attention to say, hey, how about we meet Saturday and go look at these couple of sites, was not heard. So no additional site is being considered because that person wasn't heard. And as far as I got, but I missed the first part, it is now, well, I don't know, Dave will people left the room, and I wasn't the only one, unclear where this is going, what the the decision was, and the number one issue at hand is the bicycle pump track, with maybe the dog park a close second, but the bicycle pump track is the installation that everybody is up in arms about, or that's where the lack of consensus is. And to me, I didn't get any conclusion out of there, and I saw several people that I know leaving, shaking their head, going, it's another one of these meetings, I don't know, it seems like it's in a different place, whatever, it's never going to happen, blah, blah, you know, upset. So that was my witnessing of the second half of the meeting. It ended as the exactly as the other three had. Dave, can you?
Which meeting are we talking about?
This is the
Quarry
Quarry
Park
Park
Master Plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this was the fifth plan, I had talked to Sam before the meeting on how they were going to present this, and I sort of wish that Sam had presented the whole thing rather than the moderator, but Sam did start out the meeting by saying this was the final public meeting on this. They will put together a draft which will be out in June. It is planned to go to the Park and Rec Commission on August 2nd. There's a chance for public comments at both of those, obviously. They made very clear that this is master plan, not construction planning. They talked about three groupings, a 0 to 5 year horizon, 5 to 10, and 10 to 20. There were a number of questions about what would be in those. The response from Sam was pretty much that almost all the projects in the first 5 years would be natural resource related, preservation, taking out unused, unofficial trails, things like that. But they were open to doing more if there were sources of funding. GCSD in the past few meetings of the board here in this room had said they would be willing to contribute money to some of the projects. So that discussion has yet to be had. They were sort of waiting to see this. The pump track folks were happy. Thanks, Ellie. The pump track folks were happy that the pump track was in the master plan. Everybody was surprised at the new proposed location for it.
Which is?
Which is just east of the existing playground area. It had actually been discussed as one of the possible locations during some of the meetings, but people were surprised. And unfortunately, the parks folks there weren't able to say why they had moved it there. And that was part of the confusion, is it looked sort of arbitrary. Jonathan did, after a lot of discussion, and this may have been before you arrived, Jonathan Gervais was there, the new parks director, not all that new now, he's been there 6 months, did say that, to his way of thinking, preserving the meadow as an open meadow and not putting a big bare patch of dirt in the middle, because a pump track is a bare patch of dirt, was an aesthetic win. So, you know, it's not clear why that was moved. But anyway, it's a master plan. Anything in the master plan is just a guide. It's not a, this is where it's going. So we'll see what they come up with in the final plan for June. They're not planning to make any significant changes to anything that was presented last night. There's, given all the meetings that they've had. And there were some people that were upset they hadn't heard about it. There were some people upset at everything being concentrated in one area. There were concerns about noise from the concentration. Nothing that I heard was particularly new. I think it was sort of unfortunate they weren't able to describe why they had chosen the things they had, but that will all show up in the final master plan.
I thought they were looking at, by Sonora, by Clipper Ridge.
GCSD is, not county parks.
And they're not looking at that as a permanent solution. That is a temporary, okay, because, backing up for a second. So another thing I heard at this meeting, it was right when I came in, so maybe I heard it out of context, David. Right when I came in, somebody asked, when, you know, if this got approved, when would we see a pump track? You know, when could I ride on this pump track? And what I heard was, if this thing got approved today, 3 to 5 years. And I literally had a 15-year-old turn around to me, and I have not even ever met this 15-year-old, and he was practically in tears going, I've been thinking about this thing since I was 12. 3 to 5 years, I'm going to be in college, I'll be gone, I won't even be living in here. This kid was like a teenage boy, 15 years old, almost in tears about this. And I just looked at him and went, dude, I don't know what I can say. I'm almost in tears too. I mean, you know, I've been thinking about this since my son was 5, and he's, you know, in double digits now. So I don't know what to say to you, child of the community.
But Sam did open with, and Jonathan reiterated, this is a master plan, not a construction plan. And there was, there's always some unhappiness about that, but there is a difference between a master plan and a construction plan.
So
They'll likely do a CEQA doc with the master plan. They might do a mitigated egg deck, not clear yet. And the question was asked, so will there be an EIR for each of the projects? And Sam said, yes, absolutely.
Well, one other thing I want to say, Dave, maybe related to that, sorry, Dan, is that, again, like seeing I was maybe one of the last people to leave, and so I was watching people leave, I was talking to people, they left, and the people that were leaving when I was there, I didn't feel like they felt that anything was certain, that we were still like, there were still people unhappy, there were people wanted in different locations, or people suggest that it felt to them like we're still in public outreach and we're not going to a plan that's going to be presented to the Parks
They made
Department.
very clear that's not the case. And so I think that's wishful thinking.
So that was what people wanted to think. Okay, thanks, Dave.
That was Sam Hersberg that gave the response 3 to 5 years?
I believe that was actually Jonathan.
Yeah, I think it was
Gervais.
Jonathan, yeah.
And that's about right, because the master plan won't be approved until, at the very earliest, August 2nd. They don't yet have funding to do the initial EIRs. So even after that's happened and it's been adopted, then they have to get funding for the studies, and then they have to get funding to actually build things. So yeah, it would be a miracle if anything could be completed in less than 2 years.
And in answer to what you were asking earlier, what GCSD PAC Parks Advisory Committee is looking into, in tandem with the pump track being in the Quarry Park Master Plan, is in the meanwhile, in that 3 to 5 years, could we work out, GCSD this is, could they work out some arrangement with the school district to build a temporary, community-built, volunteer materials, give us 1,000 square feet or something in that parcel off of Sonora, and just, let it be an unofficial pump track there so that the community can see what a pump track is, so that this kid can have a chance to do it in his own community before he leaves while this other thing is being built. There was some confusion. I know I talked to some people who thought that it was an either or, but it's really a temporary makeshift thing that can just dissolve back into the dirt, as that one comes online. It's in the meantime type of idea, but as the last I heard on that is it's kind of just...
It's absolutely in process. I was there talking to both Barbara Dye, who's on the GCSD board and was formerly on the PAC, and one of the school board members, who I won't mention by name since this was an informal conversation, that yes, they're still interested in talking about it.
Okay, good. Thanks, Steve.
That's all I've got. Do you have anything else?
Oh, yeah, so just...
Can I add on to the parks?
Sure.
The sentiment for, what was it, all those crazy courts that were right next to the playground? Was it pickleball, bocce ball, horseshoes?
All of those are not in the proposed master plan at this point.
Good.
The disc golf it's scheduled to be
That's scattered through the mountain, yes.
along to the southeast of the playground.
So this weekend is going to be Dream Machines, and so there's going to be a lot of traffic. As they mentioned, I guess Cosine One Water would have the booth there, and I've also been invited to go to a gubernatorial debate on May 8th. I'm not sure. I haven't checked my schedule yet, so I don't know if I'm going to attend, but I'm not. But from what I understand, some other people here on the council were also invited as well.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Okay, I don't have another council activity, but I do have sort of an announcement for people to start thinking about. I know that we still have the June election ahead of us, but filing for the November election for the November 2018 election for the MCC, filing will be deadline is like mid-August. So if any of you know people who would like to run, talk to them about it. I don't know if all of us are planning to run again at this point or not that are up for election, but even if we are, having competition is probably a good thing. So start communicating that, and anybody watching this on video, if you find this fascinating and you want to make a difference, join us. All right, that's all we have for council activities. Upcoming agendas, we have a report, a visit from the folks at Cosine Seton that Claire helped set up, scheduled for May 9th. That's the only agenda item that I have on the horizon at this point. There's some other ideas, so if you have issues or ideas, let me know. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I forward a motion to adjourn.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.